floor. Go slow. Keep me falling for you all night. Tell me now, you're the one I've been dreaming about for my whole life. Had you on my mind, oh. Hear the sound of your voice in the crowd, calling my name, yeah, you captivate, oh. You captivate me, baby. Cover me in a dream of love. You're pulling on my sanity, it does seems. I need you next to me. Can't get enough. I don't wanna miss your energy. So tell me now, you're the one I've been dreaming about for my whole life. Had you on my mind, oh. Hear the sound of your voice in the crowd, calling my name, yeah, you captivate, oh. You captivate me, baby, baby. Ooh, it's almost too much to take. Baby, you captivate me. Ooh, if you swear I wanna stay. Baby, you captivate me. Tell me now, you're the one I've been dreaming about for my whole life. Had you on my mind, oh. Hear the sound of your voice in the crowd, calling.
Mike is muted. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the Workshop Wednesday session. I am Prince, your host. I am the Director of Business Development for Mentor Me Collective. We have a super exciting Workshop Wednesday session for you all. Please join, share the live, share the link. We have an amazing session. This is like one of the ones I've been looking forward to. They're all amazing sessions, but this one is one that I have been looking forward to. So I want to first thank you all for joining, and again would like you all to share this live, share the link. Tell a friend to tell a friend that, Mentor Me Collective is live with another Workshop Wednesday session. And we have the great Boka Agboji. And he is here to help us sort of work our marketing magic. Like I know for you all and for myself, when it comes to marketing, not only yourself, but marketing either your game, your favorite game, or maybe something that you have built. I know sometimes I struggle, right? So Boka is here to let us know how we can work our magic and, make sure that we are marketing ourselves to our greatest capacity. So if you all could welcome Boka Agboji.
Thank you, Prince. Thank you so much for having me here. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes, it's a pleasure to have you. So Boka, I want you to, give us a little brief introduction of who you are. I know who you are, right? But the world needs to know who you are. And I'll give you the floor to introduce yourself.
For sure, totally. So like Prince said, my name is Boka. I am a social media marketing manager at Meta. I'm focused on the MetaQuest VR devices, focused on the sports and gaming side more specifically, doing the social media marketing there, trying to let people know about VR, VR experiences, and about kind of the future of spatial computing, the opportunities it can provide both for consuming entertainment, watching sports, and playing games.
Nice. Any what's your favorite game?
That could take a while, right? Because I could answer that a couple of different ways, and I'll say Pokemon has had a massive impact on my life, from I'm the perfect age for it. I remember like from age 3 on, essentially Pokemon has been in my existence.
Mhm.
Then also there's League of Legends with both forced me to change my college major because I got too into it, but then also like led to my first major internship. So I'll like never forget that game. And I can go on and on, but that's
Nice.
Pokemon, League of Legends. Those are two big titles in my life and maybe in my career.
Okay, well now I'm a Pokemon fan. Favorite
Okay.
Pokemon.
Oh, that's easy. Infernape, the Gen 4 starter, firefighting type. Yeah. Yeah, you're
Okay.
probably thinking OGs, right? You wanted like Squirtle, Blastoise, Charizard, Pikachu.
Well,
Listen.
listen, I'm a Me Too fan. But
Okay.
you
Yeah.
know, I
Yeah.
get it. I get it.
For
Hey,
sure.
hey, hey. But yeah, so let's jump right in. I want to
Okay.
definitely give you the floor and give you the opportunity to let the people know how they can, market their favorite games or a game that they're either looking to build or, something that they're just actively interested in.
For sure. Yeah. Let's get into it. Yeah. So beyond gameplay, the marketing magic behind your favorite games. It's funny because I think when I first started talking to Chanel about this, the focus is more like, oh, things people get wrong about video games and video game marketing. I'm still looking to dispel some myths, but let's see if I can spin a more positive lens through that. Next slide, please. Yeah, so this is the agenda. I'll do about me revised round two, some of the myths, and then along the way, just talking about both games and with the marketing and just kind of the games industry at large. Yeah, so wide-reaching conversation. Please feel free to drop questions and comments in the chat. And yeah, but there will be Q&A at the end, or so I have been told. Yeah, so look at that lovely headshot. Yes, about me, Boka Agbo J. I was raised in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. For those who know, like the Metroplex, just a wide sprawl of flat suburbs. I knew I wanted to get into the video game industry since I was in the 3rd grade. So even as an 8-year-old, had to do some sort of "what do you want to be when you grow up" assignment. Somehow my library had a book on game design, and that's what I said. Oh, I play games all the time already. This is perfect. And so kind of every decision in my life, I kind of pushed towards that. And pushing in that direction of the games industry is what led me to the University of Southern California, where I majored in interactive media, interactive entertainment. That's essentially their game design program. Like I alluded with Prince, I had to switch majors. I started as a computer science major, got way too into League of Legends my 2nd semester, and then switched over to what I really wanted to do anyway, game design. But as I was in this game program, I felt like my English language, English subject expertise, or at least affiliation, wasn't really being utilized. I was already always on social media, and nobody was talking about it, so it felt kind of like an open lane to pivot into. So I kind of just started saying from that point on, whilst applying for scholarships, like, oh, or not scholarships, excuse me, internships. Oh yes, I do social media. And I mentioned Riot Games. I ended up interning at Riot Games as a gameplay communications intern, which led to an EA internship on corporate communications, which led to my first full-time role at EA, doing communications, then social media, Bandai Namco, where I pivoted over to pure marketing. Now I'm over at Meta. These are the major players. I'm skipping some steps here. But yeah, that's about me. Enough about me, though. You're not here for me. You're here to talk about games. So next slide, please. What I have here is the door problem. Because whenever I talk about game design, which is still the root of my interest, people don't necessarily understand what it is. And so the door problem is it's a tool used to help explain to others what game design is. So imagine a door like the one this JPEG we see here on the screen. The game designer's job is to answer questions about the door. That means, what color is the door? How tall is the door? How much clearance is there? Is it a push or is it a pull? Is it a doorknob like we see here, or is it a door handle? Does it make a sound when the door opens, like when you enter a convenience store, or is it silent? Does it creak? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Picture all those questions, hypotheticals about the door. Now expand it to every single element you see in a video game. And that's what a designer's job is. Designers build a game universe, and they are answering questions about every aspect of that universe. So that was my initial field of study. And although I'm no longer a designer, I do try to take that and apply it to the campaigns I work on as a social media marketing manager. Of, okay, you can still work in an iterative design fashion, both what emotion are you trying to convey via, instead of thinking about a door, instead of answering questions about a video we are producing for social media, or, oh, is this going on Instagram versus Threads versus Twitter versus Facebook, what have you. Answering questions and thoughtful design, I think, is a commonality between both game development and social media marketing. One last preamble about games and the games industry, a common misconception, right? Game developer does not equal game publisher. Again, you can tell I started as a CS major by using the exclamation mark equals. Game developer is what most people are thinking of. Game developers or game studios, those are the people who are at the designers, like I just mentioned with the door problem, the programmers, those who are actually coding the game, the artists, who are like, oh, okay, whether it's concept art to environmental art to character art, what have you. Like those are the three major pillars of game development. Those are within the studio. Whereas the game publisher, those are the people who are kind of taking care of everything else, all the business things that the studio doesn't want to think about. So publishers like EA, that includes the legal team, the team that works events to make sure, like, oh, there's a big games convention, we're going to make sure your game has a space there. The retail team, the physical team that makes sure, okay, you're going to make sure this new title has space on the shelves at Target and Walmart and Best Buy, and what have you. Social media team like myself, the more central marketing team that works with also the PR and communications, all those functions that businesses need that game developer studios not want to think about, those take place in the publisher. Now, those things get weird and wonky these days because many publishers own many studios. Think of FIFA, or not FIFA, EAFC or Madden, right? So those are made by EA Sports. EA Sports is in the game. Well, EA, Electronic Arts, owns EA Sports. So I'm already going on this for too long, but again, I came here to dispel misconceptions. So just one clarifying point. Okay, so the first myth of game marketing, of social media marketing within games, is that if a game is great, it will sell itself. Short answer, that's not true, right? Quality does not guarantee consumption in the current marketplace. In a way that's almost a little bit nihilistic, right? I think there's so many factors as to why something will move, as to why something will catch on, beyond just the work you put into it, right? Like the idea of an artist who is quote unquote ahead of their time. Likewise, a game can be ahead of their time, right? So as a social media marketer, I do not control the game quality. All I can control, I don't even control the full marketing, because again, social media is only one aspect of a marketing campaign. It is simply the most public aspect of a campaign. So it's often the one the marketing team will look at and poke at. But still, you do what you can to the best of your ability to make sure the projects you're on are a success and you can push it hard. But whether or not a game sells is separate from the quality. Next slide, please. Right. So this little XY chart graph is of my own invention. It's something that I've doodled on many Post-its over the course of my career. Just the idea of game, again, quality is out of the control of the social media marketer, right? We can only control how hard we push it, and even then within reason, right? So imagine a game of, and also apologies for even using an example of a poor quality, strongly marketed games, or calling anyone poor quality, because I understand, having been in the industry for a smidgen of time, nobody sets out for something not to pan out, and poor quality is such a subjective thing. Think of any movie you've ever said oh, I love XYZ film, I love Hitch, and somebody else will come along and say, oh, that's bad, that's trite, what have you. All right, so enough preamble and protecting myself from hate, right? But the idea of what I can control as a marketer is kind of that y-axis, and even then only maybe 5% of that, right? But an example of a game of strong quality, strongly marketed, right? Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom. It was a flagship title, first party IP, well known. Nintendo knew they had something great because the first title did great with Breath of the Wild. All right, we're going to push this hard. The pedigree of that game and of that studio was also, I don't even want to say guaranteed, because things fall apart, but still they had a lot of confidence in it. They were very bullish on the quality of it, and therefore they pushed it hard, so it did very well. On the flip side, the game I put there is of Balatro. Balatro is this indie game made by a small studio, small dev team that kind of caught on like wildfire, at least amongst those who play a lot of games. And so that's an example of like, okay, kind of relied on word of mouth, went further than you might expect. But like it went far purely off the quality of the game itself. And again, it coincidentally was in the marketplace at the right time. And then lastly, I put a question mark at poor quality, barely marketed, because that's an example of a thing that you're not going to think about. For those who are listening, for those in the comments, please feel free to drop examples of games that you think were not strongly or not aggressively marketed and also did not have a strong quality. But that's essentially the forbidden zone, the forgotten zone, bottom left. Next slide, please. This is an asterisk, a caveat, what's the thing where you say a rule, but that rule has exceptions. Elden Ring is a great exception and perhaps a case study of that. So back in 2020 to like 2022, I was over at Bandai Namco working as an associate marketing manager. So essentially brand marketing, one of the central people talking to the PR team, the social media team, the events team, what have you, trying to move this product, trying to move this game. For those that don't know, Elden Ring is an action RPG set in an open world from what's the name of the studio? The name of the studio is From Software, this Japanese studio. They previously made Demon Souls and Dark Souls. This family of games that From Software has made, very dark, very difficult, kind of inaccessible between both the difficulty of the combat itself and the story itself was like, oh, we're not going to. It was not told in a straightforward way. You'd have to be paying very close attention, read the description on items you pick up, yada, yada, yada. So Elden Ring comes along, and From Software, they essentially said, yo, we want Elden Ring, or we want our games in general to speak for themselves. We make a thing that is very good, we give it to the people, and they'll tell each other it's very good. Now, the problem is that kind of flies in the face of any publisher, frankly, especially we were so confident in the pedigree of the game. Think back to that last slide, that we wanted to market it hard. So it's like the balance of those who hold the product most dearly, those who hold the game most dearly, and who have the greatest kind of like personal ownership of it, the greatest creative ownership of it, not necessarily wanting to like push it hard. I see somebody saying Elden Ring is way too hard, by the way. Wait till you get to the DLC if you haven't already. So with Elden Ring, it was a constant balancing act between ourselves as the publisher and the studio, the development team, to say like, all right, what details will you allow us to tell the world? What can we show our players about this title? Again, when so much of the value of the game comes from the exploration, from discovering new things. Again, that constant tightrope that we walked, the balancing act, it turned out successful. Elden Ring was Game of the Year in 2022 at the Game Awards. It sold over 12 million copies, and a pseudo sequel just came out. I point because I have the disc on my counter. A pseudo sequel called Night Rain just came out earlier this year. So that's an example, rough, loose example of just kind of the act you have to work in marketing within the games industry of balancing like. And we see this, frankly, within movies as well, right? Like, how many details do you then complain that the movie trailer gives away? Well, the marketing team, mind you, I haven't worked in the film industry, like, oh, marketers understand, like, oh, the more information you arm the consumer with, the more informed of a decision they can make, and theoretically, the more people will come to whatever it is you're trying to sell. But, you know, does that in the end take away from the overall experience? Open-ended question, something to think about. Ikechi, I see that you're a Destiny fan. Me too. Destiny 2 was the first game I ever did a raid for. I played for like 12 hours straight, and we didn't even finish. We could talk more about that after the fact. Myth 2, and this one is much closer to my heart. Great tweet, intern. If anyone who has social media, particularly on Twitter, Instagram, those are the main, TikTok as well, but Twitter and intern back in the day especially, those are the main social media platforms where, that companies often care about that, or at least within games industry, right? Gamers are very active on Twitter, especially. TikTok is for everyone, Instagram less so. But what does this actual myth mean? It means very often you'll see like if a social media account posts something that's like funny in the moment, culturally aware, culturally relevant, they'll be in the comments saying like, oh, the intern, quote unquote intern, social media intern did a great job here. This one is so defensive of me to even include in this deck, but it's essentially a larger point to say it's not as simple as it used to be. I don't know if it was ever this simple, frankly, but it's a social media post from any major brand, whether it's gaming or otherwise, is never just one intern shooting from the hip. Everything is many, many people. Next slide, please. This image of the Situation Room, I think, represents what it's like for me to try to get a tweet up. And I think that's what it's been like for most of my career. I'll say I say most of my career, but that's not entirely true. In the early days at EA, the process for me getting posts up on at EA was fairly simple. There were campaigns I'll be supporting from, whether it's The Sims or Madden or EAFC or another EA franchise, Battlefield, Apex Legends. Okay, retweet those, like those. If I think of something that just shows like, oh, we at EA care about games, care about gamers, care about the players, can joke about the things that they also care about, I could post it. It was that simple. If I thought something was risky, I would turn to my manager or my VP and be like, hey, is that okay if I post this? And they'd go. The difference was that was just representing a brand divorced from a individual campaign. It was in the earlier days, quote unquote, earlier days of the internet. Earlier days of the internet still applies in a world where social media is evolving as fast as technology itself. But then as I moved on to more focused social media accounts, I handled the accounts for EA Star Wars, Apex Legends for a time, Command and Conquer, and others, right? When it was tied to a campaign, where there's a marketing manager, where there's cross-functional partners, where there's specific developers who care about how this game is being represented. Then there was, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, as it were, a much greater process involved. Social media today, especially for corporate accounts, it is so much like a person who is trying to perfectly coif their hair to make it look as though they had just rolled out of bed. Trying really hard to come off as casual, trying really hard to come off as human, which is like intrinsically perhaps a little bit inhuman. But that's kind of the nature of things, right? Especially when you are a publicly traded company, you have investors to worry about. Like I said already, there's going to be the development team who has a vested interest in how you're representing their product, and also trying to be human, trying to be of the moment on the internet. The higher up, this is apocryphal, right? Sounds like there's hard data on this next point I'm about to make, but you can imagine the higher up you go within a corporate organization, the less likely it is they're going to necessarily understand what chronically online internet meme you're hoping to capitalize on in your social media channels. And it can often be that the biggest barrier to doing your best work as a social media manager will be fellow coworkers who have somehow established themselves as stakeholders, yet aren't necessarily digital natives. Because the other thing you can think of is not everybody, but everybody has an Instagram account. Therefore, many, many people feel as though they can speak to, oh, this is how it should be. This is how this is what we should be posting on social media. It's that easy. And not to say like, oh, good ideas can't come from anywhere. But if you're trying to move at the speed of the internet, if you're trying to capitalize on a meme that'll be corny once the weekend passes, you would certainly wish that there would be fewer than 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 people in the room. Again, this picture is not necessarily exaggeration, at least in terms of how crowded the room may sometimes be. I'll just pass by this one quickly. And then at the end of it, my face will often look like this. You finally completed what you fought so hard to complete. But again, the funny thing about social media is it's so transient. In 1 week, the world is forgotten. You just constantly have to ask yourself, what's next? Myth number 3, publishers ruin games with their greed. Again, perhaps asterisk on it. And any commandment, any dogmatic statement I can think of, I can make even within my own presentation. I can think of caveats and well actuallys. But essentially, many players, many quote unquote hardcore gamers feel that these publishers, whether it's 2K with NBA 2K or EA with Madden and EAFC, or Epic with Fortnite, or NetEase with Marvel Rivals. Oh, they are so greedy. They are ruining the games with like the monetization. What monetization means in terms of video games in the old days, and I'm talking GameCube generation earlier, PS2, OG, Xbox, and earlier, right? The MO was pretty straightforward. It was glorious, frankly. It was devs make game, the publisher is helping them make game, publisher is funding the game. Game is sold to the people, and back then the game will make a lot of money based purely on its quality. And what I'm getting into right now is kind of a sore spot amongst those who play a lot of video games. Again, that was the old way. Make games, sell game, make money. These days, with the concept of both live updates and with downloadable content, you can go beyond just the initial sales point. That is like, oh, I sell game, and then we sell additional content for the game. Again, slightly less old, but still olden days, that DLC was often like expansion packs. That is like, take the game you made, the story you made, oh, add another chapter to the story. Okay, well, I'm just paying for more of the game. Then we enter the modern contemporary era, and this is where the most complaints come. This is where this myth comes from. Publishers, ruin games with their greed. And now instead of just the DLC, instead of the downloadable content simply being, oh, here is another chapter to the story, the same way Elden Ring had its DLC of Shadow something, instead it'll be, oh, you can buy outfits for your characters, or you can buy emotes for your characters. Think of Fortnite and the dances, or hell, even think of the battle passes. You're now paying money for just to give you goals within the game. And so even as a player, I can understand why players feel that these things are greedy. But this next slide kind of has the point to this. The reality is games are a business. I air quote it, but that is entirely true. All these companies that I keep mentioning, the greater majority of them are publicly traded companies, right? And we live in a capitalist society wherein they have a fiscal responsibility to make as much money as possible. And even though I want to put it next to a picture of Mr. Burns from The Simpsons, this reality is true. If TV is a business, if music is a business, if movies are a business, how are games as the quaternary form of major artistic entertainment not also a business? This is me again taking the side of the companies, and my feelings about this are as an individual mix, but this, I can't reject reality. The price of a new video game for at least the last 15 years has been in the United States $60 for the longest times. The cost of making a game has increased over these last 15-ish plus years exponentially. So these developers are looking at like, yo, it's hard, or rather the publishers, because they're the ones who will be the loudest voice in the room, although devs also have a say on price point. Oh, wow, games are so much more expensive to make. We can't get away with charging more than $60. Otherwise, there'll be a revolt. That revolt is happening right now quietly. What can we do? The advent of the microtransaction, the advent of DLC upon DLC, the advent of games that are free to play, but then there's infinite microtransactions within it. The idea of there's a slang term in the games industry, especially on the publisher side, quote unquote whales. That is, a whale is somebody who spends a whole lot of money in a free-to-play or otherwise. They spend a whole lot of additional funds in a video game, and they kind of financially float along the title. That is, like, so many people see a free-to-play game, and they'll be economically smart, and they'll say, okay, I'll just do free-to-play and not spend additional dollars. And these whales are the ones who kind of make it possible for the game to keep going. For example, League of Legends, I have referred to them earlier as one of my first major internships. Their free-to-play model, especially back when I was playing at my peak, is pretty pure in the sense like money spent. You can't pay for power. You cannot pay to win. If all I'm buying are cosmetics, and stickers and emotes and emojis, that's not making me a better player necessarily. So it's all good. I could become number one in the world without ever spending $1. But if you spend enough time in something, especially as third spaces in the real world continue to erode, there are fewer and fewer ways to spend time outside of your house without spending money. If Fortnite, Roblox, VR chat, Horizon Worlds. That is your now, for especially for the younger people, Gen Z, Gen Alpha. That is where you hang out now. Oh well, you want to flex, you want to stunt, you want to wear something cool. Players will judge to varying degrees, judge other players on what their character looks like, much in the same way that we judge people in real life on what they look like. And it's such a game culture specific thing, right? Like I don't really play Fortnite at all, but it's like, oh, there will be skins that is like costumes for a character that are only available at the advent of the game, right? Well, if you see another player with said skin, you'll think to yourself, oh, that person, they're an OG. They've been playing for a very long time. I see Darius wrote that's kind of like Marvel Rivals right now. And that's a very interesting, God, I hope I'm not getting too specific. But what Darius is kind of referring to is kind of tying back to what I'm talking about. I mentioned earlier how, you can spend money for a battle pass. Battle passes are, within video games, a leveling track. You might think of that as, do an objective, win 5 games, and you move up a level, yada, yada, yada. And then across those levels, you unlock stuff, whether a combination of cosmetics, in-game currency, skins that I'm referring to. So it's a weird thing of, at least before, it's like, I'm spending money directly to buy a skin, to buy an outfit. Then there was a period of time where it's quote unquote loot boxes, where I'm spending money to buy a mystery box. I don't know what's going to be in it. Now we even spend money to just buy objectives, to buy direction within the video game, when for so long that was thought of as like, well, that's what the game is going to give you in the very beginning. The game, you open Super Mario Bros, you get told move to the right, do direction. I can go on, and I think I'm getting too granular. So let's just move on to the next slide, please. Now, the interesting thing about the games are a business is the question that came up so much in my major and still comes up within the industry is, are games art? I alluded earlier to movies, to music, to television, right? And within those fields, within those mediums, it's understood that art can exist. Excuse me. Right? But within video games, the question of, are games art is still debated, less than it used to be, but it's debated less currently, simply out of concession that as many people in the games industry don't want to talk about it anymore. Roger Ebert, the famous movie critic, his opinion itself has evolved from 2000 being like, heck no, definitely not, simulacrum of just reality, to okay, maybe. And I think personally, the reason I put this section here is the question of the myth of corporate greed, the myth that isn't entirely wrong, but it's like reality. So what are you going to do? Combined with, or intersecting with, this desire that games frequently have to be taken more seriously. So, this background's like a million different games, half of which I was like, trying to think of artistic video games compared to like titles which are more just like turn your brain off and have fun. I think the short answer to this question is, much in the same way, I'm not going to necessarily call every single movie art. Bless their hearts. I don't think Fast and Furious 11 is necessarily art. Maybe not necessarily every video game is art. But it's, the intersection of art and entertainment, the intersection of art and tech is really where games lie. I think that's what really drew me to it. Or really just drew me to it because it's entertaining, and frankly, I refuse to be bored as a career. But these questions of, is it ignoble to trying to make money on something that can be considered art? And as a social media manager, asking yourself, like, am I pushing, am I peddling, quote unquote slop into the world, or something that has artistic value? And for those who do take games seriously, the criticism through which they will apply to games is often, similar to the criticism you'll be applying to art, whether it is movies and music and television. That is intention, theme, how successfully are you conveying your intention, how successfully are you conveying the theme. I think the main thing that separates games from those other forms that are referred to from those other mediums is a person can be quote unquote bad at watching movies, watching TV. Everyone here on this stream might have a friend who, like, you watch the exact same thing and they come out of it and having not consumed or retained anything. But the difference is, if I'm bad at watching movies, I can still get to the end of the movie. if I'm bad at video games, which is, clearer to see in a person, if I'm bad at games, I will not see the end of the game without additional assistance, right? And so I won't necessarily consume the entirety of that art form. So this is going far beyond just the marketing aspect of games, but I think it was just something important to discuss whenever talking about games in the games industry is like both the drive to make money in this field, but then also how it can inspire, it can make people, especially narrative games. Good examples include like The Last of Us, Uncharted, here on the screen, Disco Elysium, the newest God of War Ragnarok, Cyberpunk. Games have the capacity to evoke emotion in the same way that that movies and television and music does. And it's my job as a social media marketer to make sure I'm letting you, the player, the consumer, know about these potential moments without giving too much away. Next slide, please. All right, so I'm going to now get into my conclusion. Then I'm going to get into open it for the floor. This wide-ranging conversation, so much more than just the marketing like I initially promised. And thank you for your patience with me. Next slide, please. Sorry, there's more than here. Yeah, so if you want to take away anything, please try and take away these 5 bits. Yes, The Last of Us Part 1 was great, and I can talk more about that. Ask questions, please. Game design means answering questions. Think back to the door problem. Games can't solely rely on quality to sell. The biggest battle of social media. The biggest battle of social media is process. Think back to that photo of the Situation Room. 1 million people all have opinions on what goes out on the social media channels when you're trying to tell a game, particularly whilst you're in the middle of a campaign. Games are a business, but they might also be art. So that is what I have for you all today. Again, I want to say thank you so much for the time. I appreciate your patience as I go all over the place here. And now I'd like to open the floor to questions. I already see one from Bhavika. Yeah, Prince, how should I do it?
Well, listen, Boka, first, thank you. Thank you for sharing the knowledge. Thank you for sharing your experience, right, within gaming and marketing. I will definitely open the floor. I will go through some of the questions and then bring them up and allow you to answer as you see fit. And we are going to start with, I want to say, Cherie. They asked, how can one estimate the customer lifetime value of a social media user considering non-monetary metrics like engagement, content creation, network effects, with users' behaviors are most predictive of long-term value?
Right. Great question. Thank you, Shri. Short answer is don't think about such things. Social media. We're not thinking about those things. We're not thinking about the CLV, right? Like social media, it's not great for getting somebody immediately to buy something, especially not the paid media side of things, right? In fact, that's an important distinction. I have coworkers, they literally call their team the paid team, who it's like, oh, they're running the ads on YouTube, TikTok, other platforms. And so you can imagine why those teams and mine often get confused or conflated. Whereas like myself as a social media manager, I handle the quote unquote owned page. So like right now, I'm one of the many, many people behind at MetaQuest on every social media platform. And so there we're less trying to be like, hey, here's a link to a thing, buy the thing. I'm less concerned about like, we're not concerned about monetary value so much as concerned about reach, engagement rate, right? Consideration. We want VR is still a new idea, new technology. Like I've been playing video games my whole life. VR, especially at its current strength, like with the headsets like the MetaQuest 3, have only really come on in like last 5 years or so. They've existed for longer, but I'll say at their current strength. So likewise, so much of our social media job is just to let people know this exists, this is how it works, and it's for people like you. Whether you, like right now, you can watch the FIFA Club World Cup via MetaQuest headset, or you can watch Peacock and Netflix, or I can play Tetris, or I can hook it up with my Xbox. I imagine me saying this thing right now, just as an example, is the first time so many people on the call are hearing this. And so my job, or the metrics we track, the KPIs we track, is kind of separate from CLV.
Thank you for that. Next question. Are there any other reasons why retro gaming is still popular these days? I know you spoke about, retro versus the new,
Yeah.
newer version games, right?
Yeah.
That is a great question about that.
Yeah, because the funny thing is, it's not that retro gaming is popular, quote unquote popular, if you already play a lot of video games. I'll say but the twist on your question is, why is it that games from 1 or 2 generations ago are still super popular? Example, Fortnite, right? Fortnite still arguably one of the biggest games on earth. That came out the PS4, the Xbox One generation, right? So 1 generation ago. Compare that to the what we're on now, PS5, Xbox Series X. Fortnite 1 generation ago. Minecraft years ago. Minecraft first came out when I was in high school. I said I don't get it, and then they made $1 trillion. What else was Apex Legends? That was the PS4 generation. All those games are still. If you go open up Twitch right now, you'll see many games that didn't come out in the last 2 years still at the top of the charts. Now, why is that? Is a piece of that's a complicated, large question. But I would say it's a piece of like the install base for these for the newest generation of consoles isn't uh this is one person's opinion, not my area of expertise necessarily, but as somebody who watches this stuff, it's largely in part because these consoles came out in the pandemic. PS5 was so hard to get for the longest time, and at the same time, so many devs are still making their games available for both. So only like diehards and slowly trickling down from there even bothered to get their newest games. The one thing you hear so often from gaming leadership is you're not just fighting for the attention against other video games. Game A does not just need to beat Game B. It also needs to beat Netflix and Hulu and Disney Plus and the movie theater and maybe leaving the house and Paramount Plus and yada. And TikTok. There's only so many hours in the day. Even fewer of those hours are available for entertainment. And how you spend your entertainment time, especially if you don't already play video games, right? Like I alluded to earlier, how anyone can watch movies, anyone can watch TV, anyone can listen to music. Gaming does have a learning curve that thankfully VR kind of circumnavigates because everyone knows how to move their hands compared to use a controller. But games from previous console generation are still popular because there's not been necessarily killer apps that force people to upgrade. Combine that with talking about the live service model of, I spent money in Fortnite, I spent money in League of Legends, I spent money in Apex Legends. Well, it's like, why abandon it then? It's almost a little bit of a sunk cost value thing, a little bit of if you've built a community in a game, why would you leave it? And that's what, every game company has community managers that touch that area, right? The idea of, if I love Fortnite and coincidentally nobody else in my life plays Fortnite, there's a community manager who's working to foster an online space, an online community where I can connect with other people to make sure I don't have to be alone in that way if I do not want to be. So I think that's a piece of why older games are sticking around longer. And that plus the multiplayer aspect of it, right? It used to be, I played Super Mario, I beat Bowser, saved Peach, cool, trade the game into GameStop, try the next experience. Now, again, I can turn on League of Legends today and play, even though the first time I ever played League of Legends was over 10 years ago now.
Great. Now, I wanted to piggyback, and I wanted to jump into a question. Everyone,
Sure.
I'm going to get to your questions, but Chanel had a question regarding, given that Meta Quest is at the forefront of VR and MR gaming, how does your social media strategy leverage the immersive nature of the platform beyond traditional video game marketing?
Right. I like that question. I alluded to the learning curve, right? How Xbox, PlayStation, even Nintendo Switch. Isn't that why a piece of why the Wii was so intuitive, because anyone could get into it? Likewise, VR kind of has a similar opportunity there. Social media strategy, I think, for VR, one thing that we love to do a lot is just show people, not even just show people, show people gameplay to sell game, yes, but also talk to people after they've taken off that headset. You played it for the first time at I was in Tokyo for Star Wars Celebration earlier this year for this upcoming title, Star Wars Beyond Victory, and talking to people after they took the helmet off. What was it like trying on a Meta Quest headset for the first time? And they're not even what's the positive version of shell shocked, right? Because it's the first time you do it. It's hard to describe, and watching those people struggle to find the words is a great way to get people to say, I gotta try this myself.
Next question. Speaking of capitalizing on the moment, right? To what extent is the timing of a game's release a strategic part of the marketing plan rather than just a deadline?
Oh, the entirety of a release is strategy. It's. I mean, the strategy is the main part rather than the deadline. I think it works backwards from that. It's a company pitches dev team studio pitches game to publisher, whether or not they're owned by said publisher. Publisher and the quants within can kind of determine, all right, how much longer do you think it will take you to complete said game? Okay, where shortly thereafter that window, because it always takes longer, where shortly after that is the strongest point, and also based on what do we know is also coming out. For example, Grand Theft Auto 6, I think just moved their launch date to spring of 2026. And it was an open joke in the industry that everyone was waiting for Grand Theft Auto to like lock their date so they knew to avoid it, right? Because like that's a shark in the water. It's going to eat everyone else's lunch. People have been waiting for that game forever. Just generally speaking too, right? It's like the same way movie industry has like, I can tell when a movie is coming out, what the goals are for that film. Summer is going to be the quote unquote blockbusters. We have Fantastic Four and Superman coming out in July. Later in the year is going to be the Oscar contenders because they'll be fresher in the Oscar voters' minds. Likewise, games love holiday season because especially when you're a kid, or at least certainly for myself, oh yes, Christmas time, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, gift, game. Gift cards were my main currency, and I'd use that to go to GameStop, right? So that's it. And it, like, for example, somebody mentioned Borderlands 4 earlier in the chat. I don't have it in front of me. I'm pretty sure that's launching in the fall. You launch it ahead of Black Friday, and then you can get like all the Black Friday rush and just into the holiday season rush. You also see top of the year is also pretty big because again, gift cards. You still have some game spend money at the top of the year. Summer used to be at the top of the summer. June, it used to be E3, the Electronics Entertainment Expo. It took place every year. Any OGs who remember G4 TV, the gaming channel, they would always like be live on the ground at E3. E3's gone now. It's SGF, the Summer Games Fest, but still. All right, so we know like a lot of games people are going to be announcing stuff at the top of the summer. So summer itself, they're often not going to launch titles because also think, oh, people are on vacation and people are gone. So not as many titles, big titles come out in the summer. So when a game comes out, it's never an accident. It's a massive amount of strategy from teams beyond my understanding.
Now we have Zin, who is a current scholar in our data analytics track. And the question was, has anything surprised you that you didn't know or expect when you started in the gaming industry as a marketing?
Everything, right? Because not literally. I think all the myths that I described in this presentation were things that I myself had to learn firsthand. I remember coming into the industry and thinking, I'm going to come in here and I have these large and lofty goals of being changing this company to a more player first, type of space. And like, oh, why did I do XYZ thing? Don't they know the players will hate it? Sometimes you do know the players will hate it. Sometimes you know that a game won't review well, but it's like you just got to eat it, right? Because like there's only so much time you can, in order to take a game from a 70 out of 100 to an 80 out of 100 might require a whole lot of time and a whole lot of money. And you calculate, is the juice worth the squeeze? What's the return on investment there? The games are a business thing is the one that like irked me the most for the longest. It was a direct quote from, again, an old manager. I took a photo when I was making my presentation. I sent it to him in our little group chat to make fun of him. But it's a reality that I just kind of have to eat, and to the point of like I'm very sympathetic to the games I play now. Somebody mentioned Marvel Rivals. I play a lot of Marvel Rivals. I play Marvel Snap. I play Magic the Gathering Arena. All these are free-to-play games with a whole lot of potential for microtransactions. And it's funny, me now as an adult with adult game who could theoretically spend more money on these things, it still is oh, the principle, try to go as long as you can without spending money on these games. Or, for example, for those who know, any game that has a battle pass, season pass, I try not to buy it until I've already played enough to max out all the levels. Like, or that way it's a guaranteed maximum ROI. Every game has its own internal economics that I think about more than perhaps my own finances. But yeah, just accepting that games are a business was a hard pill to swallow.
And to dive a little bit deeper, I think this is a great question. Like, how do you deal with fan outrage or choices made outside of your immediate scope that affect the experience negatively for players?
Ikechi, this is a great question because it's hit me in the face ad nauseum over the course of my career. I will say one thing. First and foremost, there's social media, which is what I do, right? Often from behind the lens of at EA or at MetaQuest or what have you, right? So then at least it's the company versus the job of a community manager. I mentioned earlier, the community manager is the person who's trying to build a community, oftentimes via Discord. They'll have their own social media following to talk about the game, to break news about the game and updates coming to the game. Whenever the game has, oh no, people didn't like this, it'll be the community manager who goes out and issues the response from the company. And they are often the sin eater. They're the one who who gets it and who is directly hit, especially because it's their name. I've seen community manager, it goes too far very frequently. I've seen community managers docs have their personal information released. I've seen companies get death threats, but at least then it's like personally, there's a remove there. You are mad at company, you're not mad at social media manager. And sometimes when it's less serious than the death threats and the doxing, social media managers can have fun with it, right? Like for example, Madden, the football video game, NFL. It's summer now, so like this time next month, I'm sure they will be releasing, oh, Patrick Mahomes is a 90-something overall, and Jamar Chase is a 90s blah, blah, blah overall. And then you'll see people in the comments yelling or complaining about said ratings. I've seen social media managers be like, I'm just the person tweeting this out. I don't make this decision. And then it forcing people on the internet to remember that the social media manager is a human and therefore the company is made up of humans is, quote unquote, one of the oldest tricks in the book. Frankly, just something we love to do. Yeah.
Great. And this question here, what is a good, or what would you consider a good marketing strategy for games?
That's a funny question because every game will have a different strategy that would be best for it, right? I'll tie it back to my game design roots though. You ask yourself, like, what is the game itself trying to convey? What is the game itself trying to make you feel? An example I'll give is God of War Ragnarok. God of War Ragnarok was the fifth mainline game in the God of War series. You play Kratos, the former Greek God of War, who had gone on in the early PS2 days, killed nearly every god in the Greek pantheon: Hermes, Zeus, Hercules, Hera, Athena, etc. Ares, certainly. And in Ragnarok, you're now in like Norse land of so think Thor and Odin and Balder and Freya, and you play a much more mature God of War who has remorse for his actions, is trying to raise his son differently from him. So within those games, it's action. I have an axe. I'm killing zombies mostly, and enemies. So we want the player to feel powerful, to feel strong, to feel like the God of War, but also show a bit of maturity with it. And so the marketing strategy, it will show up in the trailer that they're putting together. If we're trying to say it's like both powerful, but not like, lustful, right? It's not going to be just pure death metal. Hells yeah, this is awesome. There's going to be perhaps some minor keys, some somber notes underneath it, some slower beats than one might expect. You think about what the game wants you to feel, and then you think about how can we apply that to every aspect of the game's campaign. If you are marketing a game that you're not very certain of, but is like tied to like a larger franchise, for example, then you might say, okay, let's try to rely on the love of the franchise, make it less about the game itself and more just about this IP that people love, right? Or on the flip side, you'll run into an example like Elden Ring, where it's a brand new IP from an esoteric franchise, but we swear it's really fun once you get into it. And it's a game where you're going to die ad nauseum. That's almost a part of the franchise. Live, die, repeat was one of the old taglines earlier in the franchise. It's the thing with Elden Ring, try to make it more like, oh, I am a champion. I am like almost like a Norse warrior in Valhalla, thinking back to God of War, where it's like, yes, I lose, yes, I fight, but when I finally win, I feel awesome. So those are just like off the cuff, different strategies for different games. What you're trying to sell determines what your strategy is going to be.
Next question. Do game designers listen to customers, more specifically when it comes to EA Sports games? NCAA Football 06 is the best college football game ever. I agree. Why not keep that gameplay with better graphics?
Okay, so first, to you, D-Lab, and to you, Prince. Is it the best game ever, or are we just not young anymore and nothing will ever make us that happy again? Sorry. Okay, and then, but to actually answer the question, yes, it's a combination of game designers at large, right? Speaking about the industry, yes, they listen to customers, consumers. The question is, sometimes A, do they know soon enough about the feedback? B, do they know soon enough about the feedback? Are you alone in that feeling? Right? Like I'm not even going to make it about NCAA because that could be a whole. Sports games are genuinely a unique beast, right? In the way they come out every year, but sports games especially will run into the issue of if we release. I've been away from EA long enough and don't work on this that I feel like I'm not saying too much. It's like, Madden will come out in August, and we hear feedback about, we love this and don't like this. Well, we are going to update the game the same way I talked about live patches, but we also know there's going to be a whole new version of it again next year, right? So it's like, what is worth a patch versus whether there's going to be a whole shift? And is also, lastly, is what I care about what a lot of people care about? So many people who are the diehard Madden and FIFA fans are like, oh, I love the franchise mode. I love taking a team to the Super Bowl year after year. I don't care about online. I don't like Ultimate Team. You might not, but a million other people love Ultimate Team, and the proof is in the pudding. And not just that, but again, games are a business. There's not much opportunity to make additional money off of you via just franchise mode, but Ultimate Team with the opening of packs, there's much more chance there. No, I see EA is anti-gaming. See, that's the thing, right? I was at EA. I love gaming, right? So it's like, again, balance. Apex Legends, I fell off, but was dope. Let me not defend the company. I don't work there anymore, but like, it's a business and it's complicated.
Next question. Tech aims to expand its audience beyond early adapters. How do you tailor your social media content and campaigns to attract new users to VR gaming, those who might be skeptical or unfamiliar?
That's such a thoughtful question. I really appreciate it. And also, that's kind of a constant battle, something we're trying to do more frequently. One mistake that social media managers make so frequently is because we are laser focused on our page. We'll be thinking to ourselves, no, we can't post about XYZ thing. We just talked about that. But the thing is, if you're Joe Schmo, John Doe, average consumer out there, you're not paying the same level of attention as we are. You're not looking at our profile. You might just see it in the grid. I think one important thing is there's less of a danger in repeating yourself on social media as a social media manager, especially if it's like something helpful, just tips of explaining how to get in there. We have a whole content series currently within MetaQuest dedicated to like, here's just kind of, we don't call it MetaQuest 101, but it's essentially MetaQuest 101. Like, hey, did you know if you do this motion, it'll open this the home menu or what have you? Because there's also motion tracking controls and stuff like that. So, because the biggest trap in social media, being funny on social media is why a great percentage of us social media managers got into it. It's like, hey, I've always had great tweets, but nobody saw them because it's just me. But when I tweet them from a massive account, many people see it, and you get that dopamine. But you can't be funny every single time. Just on you will not succeed. So being helpful is easier and also has value on social media. Also gets reach. People will share something because, oh my God, did you see what Wendy's just tweeted? Do you see what Duolingo just tweeted? They'll also share it if, oh, I didn't know that. I'm going to repost this because it's useful. It's telling me how to set up Xbox Game Pass within my MetaQuest or what have you. So I think that's a little bit, but like, how do we tailor social media content and campaigns? Yeah, educational content is a great percentage of what we do. And also the thing I alluded to earlier about capturing content of those who just experienced VR or MR for the first time, to show, and especially when it's a wide array of people, it's mom, dad, grandpa, grandma, niece, what have you. It's like, hey, it genuinely is for everybody. Because again, the high barrier to entry that traditional games have of, oh gosh, this controller feels so weird in my hands, it's greatly reduced within VR spaces, because like when the game's just asking you to punch, everyone knows how to, not well, but everyone knows how to punch.
Now, I do want to be conscious of time. We do have a few more questions. Are you willing to stay on to answer them?
Yes, yeah, I have a little more time.
Okay, great. So the next question we have, what's your opinion on series/films being made from game industries that don't stay true to the original? Yeah, it gives the games a new audience who may for but angers OG players.
Yeah, to paraphrase Jay-Z, like if you want to hear my old stuff, buy my old album. If an adaptation is just a copy paste of what already exists, then it is artistically non-existent. It's not art anymore. You know how like you didn't draw that, you sketched it. Likewise, of like you just copy paste it. And also, medium to medium, not everything works, right? Like what God, all right, you ever read a book, especially if you ever read a fantasy book, George R. R. Martin, Game of Thrones series, it's A Song of Ice and Fire. He'll go on and on about the description of the feast, of all the food that people are eating. When they turn that into an episode of the TV show, they're not going to spend the same amount of time it'll take to read just panning over that long feast table. Yeah, they'll do the wide, long shot and they'll show you the feast table and you get this like, oh wow, that food sure does look great. But they're not going to like the amount of time, quote unquote, time spent is different. So different mediums require different ways to convey the same message. And as far as the games being turned into movies and film, like we saw the Super Mario Bros. Movie, that one especially, right? There's no harm, no foul, because that was just an amalgamation, mispronouncing, of every single Mario thing, whatever. I think the one Kat's probably thinking about is the Last of Us TV show, which the funny thing is, the Last of Us, I have the game on my PS5. I have never finished it because I am a coward. I don't do horror. I don't do scary. So it was easier for me to watch the TV show than it was for me to play the video game. Talking again about how like games are the only potentially artistic medium wherein your own skill level can prevent you from experiencing the full thing. So short answer, it's not a problem. Things change and it gives you an opportunity to enjoy it in a new way. Then people worry too much about what is quote canon. So what really happened then? Is the game true, or is the movie true, or is the TV show true? Don't worry about it.
All right, next question. How do you approach building a social media strategy that resonates with both hardcore gamers and casual audiences, especially when promoting VR content like MetaQuest?
Yeah, I have such a direct answer for this one. So like I'm happy with this question. The short answer is you start with the hardcore and you go more casual over time, right? Because like when a game, the hardcore can serve as evangelists for your game. Game first comes out, we get into the nitty-gritty details of it, the things that the core cares the most about. We show up in spaces where the core goes, and then they can tell their friends. And theoretically, if you are a hardcore gamer, your advocacy for a game as the core will carry more weight. It's like, oh, I know Johnny plays a lot of stuff, so if he says this is legit, then this is legit. Then as you get right up on like release time, that's when you're kind of just going, I don't even know if it's the best strategy or just human nature, right? You get nervous. It's like, screw it. Just tell everybody. You see this so much in movies, right? When a movie's about to come, Superman, I'm sure is a great example. You'll go into your local grocery store. It'll be like Superman themes like Go-Gurt and Superman Gatorade and Superman Kiwis or whatever. Just slap your brand on everything. So at least that way everyone sees it. I think the important thing is to not tap the words often when we're working with influencers, content creators, endemic, ENDEMIC, and non-endemic, right? So endemic would be like those who are already, they're in this space, they're in that world, they're in that realm, their opinion should be trust on said product, versus LeBron James on the Wheaties box. It's like, well, Wheaties might even be different because they're known for like, oh yes, it has the connotation, the history. But the idea of the people who don't actually have anything to do with the product, but they're trying to help sell it, it's more acceptable right before and perhaps even after the product, where the game, movie, TV show was out. There's this old quote of like, I like Lady Gaga, I like some of her songs, but what does she know about Polaroid cameras when she was made like Polaroid's creative director? It's likewise. It's like, I have to be careful what content creators do I tap to work on something before it's read as super inauthentic. Gamers care more about quote unquote authenticity than like so many other markets and spaces.
How do you handle or mitigate social media content when a publisher is faced with backlash? Example, the recent Assassin's Creed.
The recent Assassin's Creed is a really interesting example. For those who don't know, gosh, I don't even remember the full name of the title, but it was set in Japan, a locale that fans were waiting for Assassin's Creed to go to for a very long time. First Assassin's Creed came out like 07, 08. It's like, well, I'm an assassin. Ninjas will play perfectly into this. Please, please, please. Then finally go. The interesting thing is like you can play as a female ninja, Kunoichi, but you could also play as a black man. I think it was Yasuke or Yasuke.
Yasuke.
Yeah, okay. Oh, yeah, you're hip. And so it's like, race, may I say, those who are opposed to playing as black people or seeing black people in games were very, very angry about it, claiming that it was about historical accuracy. Meanwhile, Assassin's Creed has never been historically accurate. At one point, like, you assassinate the Pope and like stuff. It was wild. So like, whatever. So what do you do as a social media manager? Honestly, what you do is so dependent on like what you are told to do. Because some teams, some companies will be like, it's like a bit of a fight or flight type thing. Never fight, mind you, because like even if you're right, you'll be viewed as punching down because you're a company. So like when people are being awful, oftentimes a great thing to do is ignore it. There's this idea called the Barbara Streisand effect, whereas when you bring attention to something you're angry or upset about, more people will see it. Yeah, so it's like with Assassin's Creed, what they did though, if I remember correctly, is like I think they did issue a statement because again, the flavor of the displeasure was so rooted in hate that it's like, all right, we need to make it clear that I think we don't stand by this. And this is again hearsay. I was not on that campaign, but you can either ignore it, especially if it's something smaller. Issue a statement if it's something, if the displeasure is rooted in something you find morally reprehensible, or you can go not just ignore it, you can go dark. Like, oh no, something received so poorly, so we're not going to post for a very long time. That also is a bad idea, because then the last things, yes, you delete the post theoretically, but imagine like, oh, posted something, everyone's mad at us. Okay, we're not going to post for 5 months. Then in those intervening 5 months, the first thing you see when you go to their page is the thing that everyone was pissed about, because theoretically, keep posting and whatever, it gets buried. But again, the nature of the backlash will impact how you should respond to it.
Okay, and I actually have a question if you are
Please.
open to answering. It's a two-part question. One, what do you see is the emerging trend or technologies that will play a big part in marketing games in the future? That's the first part. And also, what do you see the gaming industry sort of transitioning into in the next 5 years from a marketing perspective?
Okay, for sure. No, I could, yeah. So what technology do I think will impact and innovate within marketing? I know what the correct answer is. It's AI. AI is impactful in marketing, and it can be used in non-awful ways, right? Like even me, if like I write one version of copy, I might be thinking, okay, I need like 3 or 4 more. Especially if I'm stuck, especially if I'm crunching for time, like, hey, whichever AI tool, help me think of more copy options. Revise this in 4 or 5 different ways. I think an important thing when utilizing AI is like to use it in small bursts, right? Like almost like think back to whenever you're taking a language class in school and you could drop the whole paragraph into Google Translate, but then like the teacher will know, like, oh gosh, not just the teacher will know, but it will be inaccurate. But if you just ask it, hey, what is this one word? Have it take smaller steps, it'll give you better results. So AI is going to impact marketing both in my world for writing copy, depending on the marketplace's comfort with it, like actual like artistic graphics, rendering, advertisements, images. There's a lot of backlash to that, and also depends on what you're trying to sell. You can't sell like, oh, all natural, organic, something used in AI, right? The consumer will be like, no. Then where do I see the games industry going in the next 5 years? one super interesting tidbit, apocryphal tale about Gen Alpha and their gaming habits. They don't care about graphical fidelity as much, at the very least. Think about like going from the PS1 to the PS2, PS2 to the PS3. That was a big one. PS3 to PS4. Oh, what can look as real as possible? Look as real as possible. Pixels, pixels, pixels. Then think about Fortnite, which is like, okay, it can still be shiny, but it's like, oh, it's not exactly trying to be like photorealistic. Then Roblox and Minecraft, like all those things, like all those titles that I'm mentioning there, they're not concerned about graphical fidelity. They're concerned about like, building a community and like a space for their players to convene. So like the space race is potentially over. The race for like this needs to be the shiniest thing ever is over. Now, so what that leaves is a wide open field, which I think is potentially exciting because frankly, chasing graphical fidelity was a bit not lazy because it was, I imagine for engineers, it's a complex problem, right? But as far as a way of innovation, it felt a little bit lazy, right? It's like, well, don't know what to do, so make it shinier at the end. Versus like Nintendo, I have criticism for Nintendo, but they'll go in a lot of different directions. The Wii was so different from the GameCube, and the Switch was so different from the Wii. They'll reinvent the wheel each time. And yeah, Ikichi, you are correct. The Barbra Streisand, as in the actor, is the name of the effect. Ironically, the Barbra Streisand effect has its own Wikipedia page, which I'm sure Barbra Streisand is unhappy about.
Well, listen, Boka, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for all of your tips, your pointers, and just your overall experience, right? I think this is one of the greatest and, Workshop Wednesday sessions that we had. I'm a little biased. I'm a gamer, so yeah. I'm always into learning from, different gamers. But we are going to wave goodbye and drop you down. Now, I guess before you leave, are you open to individuals reaching out to you and connecting with you? And if so, how can they connect with you?
Yes, folks can feel free to go ahead and message me on LinkedIn. It might take me a second to reply, and also include a note if you're trying to add me on LinkedIn, like, oh, this is where you saw me or what have you. At least then we can open a dialogue there. If you want to see me more casually, I'm always on Twitter at Boka. That's also a great place for me to just casually chat if you just want to talk about the industry. But yeah, I think those are two of the best ways.
Alrighty. Well, you enjoy the rest of your day and the rest of your week. On the West Coast, you stay cool while we stay aggressively hot here on the East Coast. But it was a pleasure connecting with you. And I see everyone here is super grateful for having you. And you enjoy.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody.
No problem. Alrighty, everyone. Thank you for joining this week's Workshop Wednesday session. We are super excited that you all joined. And please look forward to the next week's Workshop Wednesday and be on the lookout in the chat as well as our social media pages on the next topic. And we thank you all for joining us and super excited, and enjoy the rest of your evening or day wherever you are, and have a great night.
On the floor, go slow. Keep me falling for you all night. Tell me now, you're the one I've been dreaming about for my whole life. Had you on my mind? Oh, hear the sound of your voice to tell